my name's Stephanie. I'm from the Wild Martial Arts Center. I've been working with Sensei Reedhead and Sensei Maddie on some para type training for Zoom. Now, since I've been having my para students on Zoom, I find that most of the students that take part in the Zoom classes are typical students, although they might be a little slower to pick up stuff. So your teaching methods that you already use are perfect and sufficient. So I'm not going to talk too much today about any of the teaching strategies. Today's just going to be about supporting our para training for some of our online tournaments, and maybe that extra stuff that I found over the last year with what was helpful for my students and what I found I had to do to support them in taking part in their competition. So I have 9 things on my list here. So the first one, when preparing students on Zoom, the idea is that it's just like any other student. So the students are, they're able to follow along. They don't need extra help, because my students that I have on Zoom, they're not high needs. So I don't have any high needs nonverbal folks that are joining my Zoom classes online. I have just my regular students that are able to keep up with a regular class, although albeit very slow, so much slower than normal. So again, you're going to teach them just like you would prepare any other student for a tournament. So you're going to teach them their basic sparring technique and their basic kata, just the way you would with other students, with a few exceptions, of course. So that's number 1. It's not like anything else, it's just like every other student. Number 2, and of course this goes without saying, but you're going to need small groups. So if you do find that you have a larger group of students that don't necessarily have any disabilities, and then one student with a disability, you're going to probably want to do breakaway rooms, function on Zoom, and have assistants that are doing one-on-one, especially when it comes to your training for your tournament stuff. So I find that most of my students, regardless of whether they can all keep up with the regular class, they have completely different needs. No one's on the same level, and their learning is 100% all across the board. So I don't have any typical learners. Even I have only 4 or 5 students that join my Zoom classes right now, and all 5 of them are at completely different. They all have the same belt color, but they have the completely different needs when it comes to the type of feedback and refinement I give them. One student will do really good kibirachis, while the other student constantly needs me to tell them to get lower in their stance. As an example, one student needs me to slow down my instruction. One student needs me to speed it up, or else he gets bored and wanders away. The other one, if I slow it down, if I speed it up too much, he'll go wander away because he can't pay attention or keep up. So you're going to need smaller classes, extra assistance and instruction. Again, that probably goes without saying, but I'll say it anyways because I find a big thing for me. The third thing is what I've learned since doing my Zoom classes for my special needs groups, and for all groups actually, I find it's very helpful, is the idea that you could mirror you got to mirror the students while saying the other foot. So for example, if I'm doing my Pinan Shodan, or I'll just give a demonstration, where normally I would start off on my left side and I would set it up and I would turn. I would start on my right side. So I would say, get your left foot, set your left foot, and I'd come in for my thing, step forward with your right foot and punch. So that way I'm mirroring them, mirroring the kata, mirroring the technique while saying the other foot. And then that way their body will just get used to doing it the proper way. I find if I turn around, there's no mirrors to support their learning, so they can't see what I'm doing. But they can't follow along if they have to do this opposite foot. So there's not really a way around that for my special needs students. Every one of them needs me to mirror. Almost every one of them benefits from the mirroring. After they get the technique and the basic element, then I could face the other direction, and I can do it that way because they already know what I'm doing and they don't need the mirror. But that's something that when they're learning a new kata especially, I'm going to be needing to mirror it while saying the other one. Number 4 is, of course, to repeat everything over and over and over again. And then after well, I guess that goes without saying. But you're going to repeat it with verbal directions, I guess. I usually repeat it with, so rather than counting, I found that this is a big deal too. Rather than counting your students, ich, ni, you're going to say left foot forward, step and punch. So they need to hear those verbal cues. And you're going to do that enough times that their body gets used to what the movement is. After their body gets used to the movement, you let them follow you without using the verbal. So they're just following with absolutely no verbal, and then they're getting used to that. And then after that, you can try to get them to do it, of course, on their own. So I found that was really, really helpful. Number 6, when it comes to the tournaments, you have to let the parents know that there is an online tournament coming up. You have to tell them a few times, and you're going to have to let them know that they'll have to record their student. That's one option. And then, so you'd work with, what I've done in the past is worked with my students via Zoom. I'll work with them and work with them and work with them. And as soon as I know that they're ready for the tournament or ready for recording, I'll let the parents know. I'll give you a text when to come into the room and to record it. And then that way the student can get their recording in. And then we'll do it a few times. And there, another little tip for our special needs guys, or our para athletes, is that you could still guide them, because they can be recording while they're watching you, so they can kind of follow along if they need to while you're on screen with them. So that's kind of a handy thing, that they can follow along while their parents are recording. So that's a good thing. And then they're getting used to it without the verbal, because then if I shut off my voice, they don't have to hear me. They're not listening to me command them with the verbal cues anymore, but they're used to doing it without the voice. Number 7 is be prepared to really help parents and students and support them through the process of logging in and the online process. So I've even had to have permission from the parents to log in for them, create an account, and then give them that information. They can change the password and everything, because parents are really, a lot of times, a lot of people aren't involved in the computer industry. They don't know what's going on when it comes to clicking and anything like that. So I've had to really support the parents in that as well. Often that's one of the major barriers that parents don't, I find in my experience, that don't want to put their children in any of this online stuff, because they don't exactly know what to do. Another thing is that you're going to have to let parents know that the students are going to need a place to practice their kata that's not in their space or their bedroom or their room, so that way the kata for the tournament can be viewed without obstruction, because that's been an issue lately. There's a bed in the way or a chair in the way, and you can't see stances or anything, and it inhibits the students' karate technique as well. So oftentimes that's going to be communication that you have with the parents or the students ahead of time. And you might, in our regular dojo, we might just say it's the student's responsibility, but in this sense, when you leave it up to the students, you're just not going to have any students. The students just aren't going to come, and they're not going to have access, because they're going to need extra support when it comes to things like that. Another one is, I have 2 more things that I wrote on my list. Allowing the students for choice. So there's their sparring technique, and then there's also their kata. So if you allow them, say, what we'll do is we'll have each of my students, again, I only have a handful, will choose a sparring technique with 3 moves in it, and we'll all practice it. And then in the end, I say, which one would you like to do to record? So then they can kind of choose which one they like to do. That way, it's not just here, I'm showing you this one and you're going to copy me and do it. It still gives them some autonomy. Oftentimes, the students still will want to do the one that you showed them, because they feel more confident with it, because you were able to guide them through. But as long as they have that choice and they get used to it, then it really makes it more authentic for them. And then the last one is show class entire. Oh, I guess that was it so far. So I guess I'll just reiterate then. So we have number 1, when preparing classes for students on Zoom, it's just like any other class. For the most part, we don't have high needs guys joining our Zoom classes as of yet. And if so, they might be private classes to begin with anyways. If you do have more, even a handful of, even if you have 2 or 3 students, often they're in different paths. They have different needs. Some like it slow, some like it fast. Somewhere in the middle isn't going to work for any of them. So if I try to go down the middle, I'm going to lose both of them. So it is difficult oftentimes, and so you might have to do some private classes, or maybe if you can get an assistant volunteer. But if you're going to be teaching small groups, breakaway rooms, if you have that option, is an idea. Be prepared to mirror the moves while saying it, so it might take extra learning on your part. It's good for the brain. repeat using verbal cues so that they get used to the body motions, and then once they're good at that, take their verbal cues away, and that way they get used to no sound or no anything. So then when it comes to recording, they're used to watching you, copying you, but they don't have to hear you give them the verbal cues before they move on. Then let parents know what's happening, so that way you're there to support them. Let them know that you might record them in a few minutes. You're going to text them in a few minutes when they can come into the room to record their kids, so that they know. And then be prepared to really help them and support them with the online atmosphere. They'll get used to it eventually if they continue. And allow students to choose between what they're going to do, so it's a little more authentic. And that's all I have to say really when it comes to training for our para karate tournaments. We've had some success so far, and the students have really enjoyed it. I only have a handful, so I can't speak too much. However, we're going to continue on. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next tournament. Bye.